Finally, after nearly 2 years of lockdown and social distancing, model railway shows have started to run again. Join me as I view 8 layouts at the Cupar Model Railway Club Christmas show. So I'm here with Chris at the Cupar Christmas Model Railway Show, and he's got a really interesting layout. It's called Loch Nagar and it's double O gauge. Built in a rifle case, the layout measures 3 feet by 1 foot.
There was no real inspiration behind the layout. It was literally stuck in lockdown, as many of us were, nothing to do, and I just wanted something to practice my skills and try new techniques on. Using what I had in and around the house, just see what I could do basically, that's all it was. A friend of mine gave me the case, and being military myself, it was just a fitting kind of thing to build it in. Fits my personality, fits who I am, fits my job. And it was more the challenge as well. Can I build something that'll fit in this small space? Overall it's 3 foot by 1 foot, and the layout just collapses right down, and you can close the case for portability and transportation. And underneath I thought, right, let's go one step further. Can I use the case to transport all my stock, all the scenery? So underneath, as you've seen earlier, there's actually a stock box in there, and there's room for the storage, there's room for the cable and everything like that. I wanted it to be interesting as I could and try and fit as much into a small space as possible. And it was a couple of weeks of just trying different layouts, different track settings, how does it go. I was looking at the Inglenook layouts, could I get free sidings on it? And it didn't really look right, it was just overcrowded with track. So with the layout now, you've got the engine shed, the goods shed, and the small head shunt. It just gives it a little feel that it's a military establishment with not much space for the railways, but just a general goods in, goods out area.
And the stock, is that all your sort of stuff that you've had in the past, or did you buy it in especially for the layout?
Some of it's stock that I've had previously that's been repainted especially for the layout. A lot of the vehicles and bits and pieces are airfix kits. The buildings and that are reclaimed from old club layouts or scrap boxes, modified slightly if there's bits missing. And I say it's just a mismatch of everything really. It's whatever I had to hand, I'm just going to use it.
How long did it take you to do?
It was about 3-4 months from start to finish. And it was just in and off, looking after the kids at the same time, doing the shopping, household chores. And it was something to do in the evenings when I had nothing to do, or through the days. And it was brilliant. It was, and if I can say anything to anyone, if you're stuck in that situation again, get into a hobby like this. It is great for your mental well-being, your mental health, and it gives you a challenge and it gives you some purpose as something to do. And that was the whole point of doing it.
So what about the control of it? It's just DC, is it?
It's fully DC, yeah, and it's all mounted onto the baseboard, as you'll see on the video. It's got a Gauge Master UF controller and then a small points board right next to it. All the transformers, CDUs, cabling is hidden underneath. And because it's in a plastic case, it's all insulated as well, so there's no risk of electrocution or shock from anyone.
What about operation of it? How do you normally run it during the show?
And running it's however you feel, just shunting wagons in and out. It's something to have a little bit of fun with and just enjoy playing with really. It's also a bit of a photo board as well. If you want to take a photo of something on there, it's good for that because it's not too big, it doesn't take up too much room.
This layout is Thrift Drift, modelled in O gauge. Based on a working colliery at Earl's Seat, Fife, several drift mines feed into central buildings. The Pug Shed is based on that at Francis Colliery, which is also located in Fife. A loco propels a pair of empty wagons in for loading, and through some clever manoeuvres behind the scenes re-emerge loaded with coal. Empty wagons are brought up from the exchange sidings and propelled up past the screens, the main building on the right. The sidings beyond the screens are on a gradient, and the wagons gravitate under the screens to be filled. Full wagons are collected and taken down to the exchange sidings. Number 1 drift can be seen sloping down into the ground in the centre, and number 2 drift is on the left. This used to load straight into the wagons on the branch, but its coal is now taken by the narrow gauge to the main screens. Number 3 drift is on the other side of the disused British Railways branch, which is being used to store withdrawn wagons. The mine railway runs into this in a concrete tube, and its coal is also handled in the centre screens. Typical locos could be a Packet, Sentinel, Barclay, or a diesel such as an 03, 05 or 08 shunter. The 3mm to 1 foot narrow gauge loco on the upper level has a plasticard bodied approximation of a battery electric loco. This O-gauge layout is Bathburn, exhibited by the Pentland Model Railway Group. Bathburn has been constructed to see what is possible in a relatively small space in O-gauge. The layout measures 10 feet by 2 feet and depicts a small suburban station somewhere in Britain. The time period of the model is flexible to allow us to use a variety of motive power we have available. So we can run from rail blue right up to just before privatisation. Passenger services are operated by a Class 121 bubble car. Additional traffic on the layout comes in the form of freight wagons to Thomson Transport private sidings, light locos and fuel deliveries to the small stabling point. The layout is controlled by a Digitrax DCC system, and the majority of the locos are sound fitted and are a mixture of Helljan, Dapol and kit-built models. The bubble car is a Bachmann Brassworks, also fitted with sound and directional lighting. The rolling stock is a mixture of ready-to-run and kit-built vehicles. My thanks to Brian Thompson for supplying the information.
Morning, Andrew. Yeah, so we're here with Williamson River, which was brought by club members Ryan and Ian as a stopgap, basically. When we brought the layout, it came in 3 sections, and after some talk in the club room, we decided that we were going to keep the layout, refurbish it, and rebuild it, and use it at exhibitions. It is American HO or European HO, and it's set in Canada around about 2000, and it's a varied stock from Canadian National and Canadian Pacific. On the refurbishment side, we obviously stripped it down. It came in 3 boards. The fiddle yard and the front scenery section being 2 separate panels, which wasn't very good for shows. It was unstable and we had a bit of running problems. We've now fixed that. We've built a new 1-piece board, so the layout comes in 2 sections. A lot of the scenery has been changed and lots have been added on. Bits have been taken off to give a better running sort of performance. A lot of the buildings that you see on there, they're scratch built, kit bashed or out of the box ready to run. Same with a lot of the stock. A lot of the vehicles have been modified. A lot of the lights have been scratch built using diodes and sensors. And there's even buttons on the front for kids to press, set off the fire engine and the police car at the crash scene.
What sort of control system have you got with it?
So we're just using a gauge master with manually operated points and isolated sections so that we can run a train in or run a locomotive in, isolate it there and then run another one in, and it's all analog controlled.
What sort of challenges have you had with the layout over the time?
So we're quite lucky as a club that we have quite a good spares backup and detailing and scenery sort of like stock within the club. The main challenge has been, obviously we brought the layout in as a stopgap, and it's been rebuilding the new section and setting it out and getting it to run straight. A lot of you will know yourselves, if you buy something in, you don't know the way it's been built up, you don't know how it's been done, what the wiring goes to, no wiring diagram, so you've got to work all this out yourself. And we're lucky we've got quite a lot of engineers with us, electrical and mechanical, so we've been able to work it out as a team.
How long has it taken you to get it to this stage?
Looking around about 6 months, from stripping it down, finalising the plan, building it up. A layout's the same, everyone's layout's the same, it's never really finished. You've always got things that you want to do. But we're happy that it's a good stage to show the general public now.
And have you had any challenges with it while you're doing that?
Nothing yet. It's running really well at the minute. Everything's working as it should. Normal things, just keep the track clean and tidy and keep your wheels clean.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This 00 gauge layout is Dudley Road. Dudley Road is a small light maintenance depot on the west side of Glasgow, built on the remains of an old LMS engine shed maintenance depot, now part of an industrial estate not far from the West Coast main line. Now taken over by GBRF to provide a stabling point for their locos on the West Coast main line, it recently had overhead wires installed to allow access for their electric fleet as well. Across in the old yard, Alstom have a wheel set depot with a lathe and wheel drop. A variety of operators can be seen visiting this facility. Now controlled from the signalling centre at Springburn, drivers have to ask permission to leave the depot to rejoin the main after refuelling or maintenance. Other movements in the yard are controlled by radio or phone and the signalling centre. Most classes of diesel and electric locomotives can be seen visiting the depot. Mark, the current owner, purchased the layout in June 2020. One of the biggest changes made was the addition of the overhead catenary cables, which proved to be a challenge at the three-line junction. Control is DCC using an ECOS controller and a Digitrax unit. Points are controlled from a plug board. Some locos have been chipped for sound. Operation is normally two-man. This layout is Mossmorran TMD, exhibited in 00 gauge. Mossmorran Traction Maintenance Depot is a fictitious layout based on a typical network rail TMD from the year 2000 onwards, which allows a varied selection of locomotives from various companies to use it. The layout name comes from the Mossmorran natural gas plant in Fife, and the TMD is fictionally located on the upper south side of the high ground. The TMD has the usual facilities: a twin road loco servicing shed with a pit and jacking facilities, diesel fuel storage tanks, a fuel drop-off point, 3 refuelling bays, a single road wagon shed, an oil and liquid storage area, scrap part areas for recycling, some offices and a power control box. I spoke with Ken, the builder of the layout, at the show, who gave me some more information. How big is it?
It's, including the fiddle, well, the scenic section is 10 feet by 2 feet, but including the fiddle yard, it's 14 feet long.
The unique back scene, which is nearly 14 foot long, uses about 65 photos stitched together and printed out in 6 individual sections.
So I spent 3 months travelling backwards and forwards at the weekends and during the day surveying the site. To be honest, it's one of the most difficult photographic projects I've ever done. I didn't realise how difficult it was going to be to print them out and try and match them together when you put the boards together to actually get them to match. It's actually more difficult than I realised.
What's the track?
The track is Pico Code 75 concrete sleeper track. But if people who look on the layout, you'll see there's a 3-way point and a double slip. Well, that's just standard Code 75 wooden sleeper track, and I've just painted it grey to blend it in with the concrete.
What control have you got?
I'm using Digitrax DCC system.
And all the locos, did you buy them chipped or did you fit them?
No, I bought the locos and I chipped them myself, because I had a lot of the locos before I went DCC, because I had an analogue system before that, so I chipped them, programmed all the locos myself.
And you fitted sound as well? Yeah?
A few of them I've got sound, yeah, Hornby TTS mostly.
What's the normal run of mill for the operation?
Well, normally the control panel at the back's got LEDs in it, so when you select your points, you can select your route by flicking the switches. And all the LEDs all light up to show you where you're going. So we've got a wagon works at one end, and at that end we've got the engine shed, the refueling points, and you've got the fuel drop off. And next to the wagon works is a wee local wash if you want to wash your locals.
So I'm here with Ryan now on the layout Wenstead. So what's the idea behind the layout then?
The layout was something to do because I had itchy feet to do another layout in the club after building my layout Eden Road. And I got one of the guys in the club to make a couple of boards up. I'd bought a range of GWR stock that I wanted to do something with along the lines of China clay. I decided to invest in some more GWR stock and set the layout somewhere in the West Country. So it's got a range of 158s and 150s, 153s of GWR themselves that come into a terminus island station. There's a servicing point for DMUs operated by GWR themselves, and it's GWR as in the present day operation, not from the 50s or earlier. At the rear of the layout there's a small DB depot. DB is quite prevalent in the southwest, operating the China clay trains, aggregate and other assorted items. So there'll be a range of class 60s, 66s, also China clay wagons in for maintenance. The layout's very much under construction, but we brought it today to let people see what goes into an exhibition layout from start to finish. So ideally, once the layout will progress fairly quickly and the scenery shortly, and hopefully we'll have it out at shows next year. It is the scenic section is 5 feet and the fiddle yard is 4 foot, and that's a hidden fiddle yard. Yeah, it'll fit in the back of a regular car. The boards have been done that way because I wanted to be able to transport it by vehicle to shows rather than rely on hiring a van. I think we started it about August and just been working on it a couple of nights a week. Boards were fairly quick to put together, track work's been done, and then what we've been working with Steve is doing the wiring. From a scenery point of view, from where we are at the moment, the scenery won't take that long. It's just a case of actually spending a bit of time working on the layout. The back scene's just going to be a plain plywood back scene. It's going to be painted a grey colour to look just like a grey sky, and then I'm going along the back, I'm going to have low relief buildings.
What track are you using?
It's Pico Code 75. We're using concrete effect track for the main line into the station, plus the fueling point or the servicing point, and then the depot is wooden sleepers because we don't think a depot would be upgraded to use concrete sleepers based on... At the moment it's one man, just from a restriction from the controller point of view, but the intention is to have a handheld controller with the layout as well. So what will happen is the yard will be operated by one person from DB's side of it, and then somebody can work the main line with the other handheld, and that includes obviously the DMUs coming in and out and the servicing point as well. And the two tracks operate independently, so they're not physically linked at the front or at the back. So if I want to move something from one track to another, it's a case of lifting it out and changing it over.
Okay, I'll speak to Steve now. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Well, what we're using is the Zephyr, Digitrack Zephyr, which is the basic model, and 2 bus wires down with droppers on every single track. Then we've got point control modules. There's a Digitracks on the fiddle yard board, and that's actually setting route settings, and DCC concepts on the main scenic board. And we're using Pico point motors as well, just the usual solenoid start motor.
And they're located underneath the board?
They're all located underneath. And there's also DCC auto frogs connected to the points. So we gauge master module, which throws the polarity of the point, because the points have been modified for DCC. So the points are permanently alive, not relying on the blades to make contact. That changes the polarity of the frog, because what we've done is there's 2 wires underneath the point that you cut, then you solder further back up to make the blades permanently alive. So the frog's dead, so then DCC auto frog powers the frog, and we don't get any short circuits that way.
My name is Ray Knowlton, a lifelong model railway enthusiast. I'm a member of the East of Scotland 4mm group, which is an area group of the Scale4 Society. And this is my layout United Mills, which is built to P4 standards.
But I want to find out a little bit more about the Scale4 P4 Society and so on. Ray, can you tell me about the considerations you need to look at for track laying and so on a P4 scale?
So although I wouldn't say it's easy to make track, particularly turnouts, there is everything that you need to help you, and it can be a relatively straightforward process. Ready-made straight track is available from a number of sources, but at the moment turnouts, unless you can find somebody that will build them for you, you're on your own.
So just to clarify for people that maybe not aware, P4 track is 18.83 millimetres.
18.83 millimetres wide.
So a standard 00 gauge loco, although it might have a 4mm body, won't actually run because it's the 00 is what, 16.5 millimetre?
16.5 millimetres, yes. So that equates to about 4 feet, whereas 18.83 is exactly 4 foot 8.5.
You basically need to re-wheel the locos, and do you actually change the size of the wheels?
That depends on whether the wheels are prototypical or not. Of course, some companies will produce models, and have in the past, with wheels that are normally smaller than they should be, partly because the flanges are so big. And one of the main advantages I see in going for P4 is the fact that you don't have great big steamroller type flanges on your locomotives, and they look so much better. This is the Bachmann Director, particularly the Scottish Director, a D11-2, and I've used a set of Alan Gibson conversion packs in order to convert it to P4, and that was a very easy, took me one evening I think, to actually convert it, so you can very quickly have a steam engine running in no time at all. The layout is DC, very simple. The turnouts are operated by hand-operated Blue Point units underneath the baseboard. The track has one single feed, set of isolators. The uncouplers are electromagnets, and the couplings themselves are Alex Jackson couplings, which are used quite frequently by members of the Scale4 Society, which allows automatic uncoupling wherever you've fitted a magnet.